Now, you remember that to add two fractions, we must have the same denominator in each of those fractions. Well, what if the fractions that we want to add do not have the same denominator? Well, in that case, the first step must be to find a common denominator. And usually the denominator that we want is the smallest one possible. And this smallest or least common denominator is the smallest number which is divisible by each of the original denominators. Okay, so for example, if we want to add 2/7 plus 3/5, these fractions have different denominators. This one's 7, this one 5. And so we cannot add them as they stand. We must find a common denominator. Well, the smallest number that both of these denominators divide is actually their product, 35. And so 35 is the denominator that we will want to use. Now, you might get the idea that all we need to do is multiply the denominators in order to get the common denominator. That will always work, but that will not give us the least common denominator in many cases. Here is an example where we can actually find a denominator smaller than the product of these two original denominators. 5/12 plus 3/8. If we multiply these numbers, 12 and 8, we get 96, and that number will work as a common denominator, but it is not the least common denominator. And we can see that that's true because 24 is equal to 12 times 2 and 8 times 3, and that is the smallest denominator that we could use, so that would be the one that we would want. The second step in adding unlike fractions is to find an equivalent fraction for each of the original fractions. We've already seen how to do that. We need to build up the original denominator in each of the fractions by a factor to get us to the least common denominator. So in the first case, we want to build up each of the 7 and the 5 to 35. And so that means multiplying 2/7 by 5 over 5. Now, of course, 5 over 5 is just equal to 1. So that makes this answer here, 10 over 35, equivalent to the original 2/7. But what it does for us is it gives us an equivalent fraction with a common denominator. And similarly, we build up the 3/5 to an equivalent fraction by multiplying by 7 over 7. In the second example, we need to build up each of the denominators to 24. And so we multiply 5/12 by 2 over 2 and 3/8 by 3 over 3. That gives us 10/24 and 9/24. Okay, so now we have equivalent fractions, and the third step is to add the equivalent fractions. So in the first example, we have 2/7 plus 3/5 equivalent to 10/35 plus 21 over 35. Now we have same denominator, so we can just add the numerators and get the answer, which is 31 over 35. In the second example, we have 5/12 plus 3/8. We saw that those fractions are equivalent to 10 over 24 plus 9 over 24. The answer is 19/24.